this is our first podcast, Menopause, Menopause.
Ta-da.
Quite exciting, isn't it?
It's very exciting. Yes.
And we didn't know what to focus on as the first one, but this is all about the menopause. This is all about how we navigate this period of our lives, and it's a massive period, I think, of transition and realignment and readjustment. And one of the questions that we asked each other whilst we were preparing all of this was, what would be your takeout from the core of the period? Although you just said you're maybe not completely out of it because you're all still hot sweating, but
the thing is, according to my doctor, I'm well through the menopause in terms of what my hormones are doing, but I've literally just started having hot flushes. But then my mum says that. My mum has obviously been out of menopause for years and years.
One would hope so.
Still has hot flushes. So yeah.
But then maybe it's just the hormonal side of things.
Shift, yeah.
Because I think the hormones carry on. David, my partner, we said we're not going to talk about partners, but he did say this to me, and I think this is probably quite true. I don't obviously bleed anymore. I don't have a period anymore. But he said, I can tell when it's that time of the month.
There's still hormonal
because
shifts.
You kind of nest and clean and sort the house out
for sure.
a couple of days before that time. And so I think the hormones are still
I can
shifting.
Still tell that mine are, there's still a cyclical thing going on, because my emotions. I've always been really emotional, like hyper emotional at certain times of the month, and that's still the case. That's still the case.
I would agree with that, and I think I shift with the moon quite a lot, when there's a new moon or a full moon, I get really affected by that. In terms of the sleep or the alertness, or not needing to sleep as much. I think that's another of the things. As you get older anyway, I think you don't need to sleep as much, but particularly during and post menopause, the sleep is a big factor, isn't it?
And then that has a knock-on effect on everything else.
But what is the biggest thing? Because I agree with you on it. What was the biggest thing that you felt as you were going through the menopause, and then really the biggest takeout after?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that I needed and still need a lot more space. Me time. I need to prioritize my needs a lot more than and really make that a priority, a lot more than I did in my 20s and my 30s. And
why do you think that is, though? Do you think it's because we're taught as women not to be so selfish or self-centered or ego-centric? Or I don't know if those are words that they were definitely bandied around by my mother, for example. This idea of, as women we should sacrifice or give up or not concentrate on ourselves so much, blah 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 blah.
For sure. Although I don't think I did any of that consciously.
No.
But as you say, that they are all the sort of subconscious messages that are given to us as women, aren't they? But I think it's just in those younger years. If you'd asked me in my 20s or my 30s, why I was making the choices I was making and living my life the way I was living it. For me, I would have said that was exactly as I wanted it. I thrive on multitasking, on speed, on running from one thing to the next. And I still do to a certain extent. That's my character. I'm creative. I like to be busy. But I think when it came to me, how it came to me that I needed more space was I noticed that I wasn't able to deal with that multitasking and stress in the same way as before.
I mean, the brain fog thing, whilst you're going through the menopause, won't allow you to multitask. I suddenly thought, because I'm like you, I'm really good at multitasking, and I kind of thrive off it as well.
You do,
and I do thrive off it. And I actually watched a clip with Stacey Solomon a while ago, and the whole thing was like a Sunday at home or something, and she sits on a sofa with a cup of tea and a magazine, and within seconds she's off the sofa, sanding down a piece of furniture, blah blah. Exactly, because she said, this is my form of relaxation. I know that everyone thinks that you should just lie, do nothing, read a book, or just lie and do nothing. But this is one of my forms of meditation and relaxation. And I am a bit like that naturally and always have been. But the thing I found was the brain fog just wouldn't allow me to do it. And it was like I was losing myself a bit, Jill, in the sense that I'm like, well, if I can't do that anymore, you know, who am I and what am I? And I did need, and this was the sort of conclusion I think we both came to during it. I had a big need for space during the whole of the menopause. I wanted to be alone. I wanted to have a big amount of space all around me. You know, and then post menopause, if we can say there's a real post, because it kind of carries on, like you just said, the hormonal shifts carry on, etc. You're just not bleeding, you just haven't bled for a while. But post, I still have that need for more space. But like you just said, for me,
for sure. I think it was the not coping that forced the shift. So if I look at myself, I think back to being in a stressy work environment. You know, beginning of the winter season, staff training, times that I used to love. You know, not having plans stuff in advance. That used to be me pulling all-nighters and, you know, running out there and doing presentations. I just suddenly couldn't cope with it anymore, and found myself.
I didn't want.
No, but found myself at the time feeling like a failure, you know, feeling like that crazy menopausal woman that's crying, that can't, you know, and seeing sort of younger colleagues looking at you as if you were mental. And it was, and I felt like that at the time. And then it was only in giving myself a little bit more space, accepting that I couldn't multitask in the same way, I couldn't handle the same degree of stress, and didn't want to, as you say, that then I saw, actually, with the right space, I can deal with these situations better than ever, because I have the experience and the life experience and so much to give. But I need the right environment in order to really flourish now.
Because my mum said something really interesting. So my mum's nearly 81 now, and she said her 50s were, and you just got into your 50s, I'm nearly 54. Her 50s were the most dynamic, amazing time if she looks back now.
My mum
in terms of her ability to deal with stuff, her knowledge and her experience.
Yeah, we have so much.
So much of it.
I was thinking about it this morning. We've always had our story, but you're more sure of who you are, what you bring to the table, what your story is, what your experience is, and how you can use that to sort of help others and yourself. But you need space. You know, I think it's like any kind of creative process. You need space in order to do it.
So that's nice to really look at the menopause as a creative process.
You need space for that.
Because I've read loads and loads of things over the years, and I know you have, and I'm not an expert on Jung by any stretch of the imagination, but Jung says that when you get into your 40s, probably late 30s, but definitely 40s and then 50s and beyond, but particularly 40 and 50, and particularly as women, we start to take off the layers that we've put on, society's put on, and we sort of strip them away bit by bit to create, or to find maybe, who we actually are at the bottom of all of that, and recreate who we were right at the beginning. And I like that idea, and I like the idea this is a whole creative process, because I think a lot of women are quite scared of the menopause. And okay, some people live it in different ways in terms of the physical side of things and the effects there, but I think it's an incredible time of transformation, but it does need to be recognised as a period of change.
It is. Actually, as you were speaking, it's just hit me that, okay, my experience was I sort of, because I didn't have a lot of space, and I wasn't handling it, that made me realize there was a need there for space. But for a lot of women, this transition, the menopause, runs parallel with to a time when space is almost imposed on them, as in the kids leave home. You know, they may be
That's true.
You
The
know,
empty nest
yes,
syndrome.
empty nest.
I've
They
been living
reduce
that
the
a bit.
work load, and then suddenly you're
Yeah.
faced with this space that is very uncomfortable for you, and you almost
Andy.
don't know what to
Yeah.
do with, because, as you
Yeah.
say, up until that point in your life, you filled it. You know, it's filled with busyness and looking after everybody
And
else's
yeah,
needs,
yeah,
and so
and
you haven't really
you know,
addressed your
school
own.
times and
Mm.
homework and school holidays and all that kind of thing. And bit by bit, those are not as
Those
important.
needs,
when
others'
they're
needs
not.
are your needs. You know,
Yeah,
that's your
yeah.
role as a mom, as an
Exactly.
employer.
Yeah.
And then suddenly when they're not there, it's like, who am I when
Yeah,
I'm not looking after everybody else?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a big thing for a lot of women, and mine's been progressive because my eldest was at boarding school. My youngest is now at boarding school, just because of the school choices in France. This is just the way it works in France, because we're living in France. We should specify this for people who don't know us. We live in the French Alps.
True.
And we have a very eclectic, weird lifestyle, actually, just for the record. But we live in the mountains. We live at the base of ski resorts. For a variety of reasons, we've arrived here and we're still here. And I love where we live. I really thoroughly love where we found ourselves. Jill's my neighbour. We live in the same village at the base of these different ski resorts. And as such, our lifestyles and our children's needs are a little bit different than maybe some other places in France even. So school choices are quite tricky. You know, your son does ski études, which is imagine this in the UK, you know, ski studies, you know, and it's part of the school curriculum, isn't it? And luckily he's in the school just down the road for that.
But that'll change in a few years, and
that'll
he'll go off like
exactly. Like mine, and Melody went off when she was only young, really, to high school to finish her schooling because she couldn't do it in the school around here. And my youngest has gone because she wants to be a chef, so she's doing a chef's school in you know, in a town about an hour and 20 minutes away. So she now bought. So it's been progressive for me, but it's still hard, that empty nest scenario. Oh, you know, I go into their bedrooms and sniff their things because I'm missing them.
And we
so
are
much.
also in a place where, in terms of physical space, you know, it's we are surrounded by
space.
vastness.
Yeah.
So when kids
And
do
wild
leave,
vastness as well.
and then so there is that real contrast between when the kids are there. It's actually, because of our environment, it can be quite crazy at times, because you've got to drive the kids here. You know, you don't have everything in close proximity. Then when that goes, I mean, it's pretty intense at times, and then suddenly it's like, whoa, I'm kind of alone in the wilderness.
What do I do now? How do I do it now?
So I think so maybe the transition is amplified a little bit because of our environment.
But it's the same setup. One of my teachers because I'm a yoga teacher, and one of my teachers and coaches, she is a real advocate for preparing for when that happens. So she's been very fortunate that her son has been at home until, and even now is at home. He's like 19 now, and I think he's about to go away to university. But she said, I've been preparing for this for a few years now.
Good on her.
Because I knew this would come. She's only got one child, like you've got one child, and it you know, it's the centre of your world, isn't it? For such a long time.
I think I'll need to do that, or else I'll be following Mac around like some crazy stalker.
and there's part of them that quite likes that, but there's quite a part of them that really doesn't, and they need to do their thing, and they need to make their decisions, and they need to, you know, do that. And then what's really lovely is when they want to come home and they want to spend time with you, and you're like, oh, do you really want to come? Oh, that's so nice. But yeah, coming back to the space thing, I think is sometimes it's imposed on us, like that one. But sometimes we have to seek it, don't we? And the coming back to self and thinking of yourself in the mix. I think it's really hard for women to do that. I found it quite hard because I still have this little voice, I think, in the back of my head of my mum years ago. I love my mum, you know, it's not a problem, but I remember her saying a few comments of, you know, being self-centered or too selfish or this, that, and the other. Whereas I didn't even think I was being at the time.
But I guess in terms of the lifestyle you've chosen and your work and everything like that, you've always been a lot more into things that involve space. Like when I, like, for example, meditation.
Yes.
A morning meditation is something that I do now. That's normal for you, and it has been for what, most of your life?
About 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for me, you know, a few years ago, I would have looked at that like, I'm not doing meditation. You know, that's a sort of hippie thing that I don't, women like me don't do. But it's practices like that that I know you have always known make a huge difference. I didn't, you know.
No, it does make a huge difference. Why do you think it makes a big difference? Because you've just started doing it. Obviously, I've been doing it. It's part of my daily for so long now. I hardly even think about it. But why does it make a difference for you?
For me, meditation, journaling, there's loads of other things.
You do even a lot of journaling.
Even my running, in a way, makes a difference to me in terms of awareness. It's little moments in the day. Like I sit during my morning meditation, my brain still goes nuts.
But that's okay. I was talking about that last week with one of my yoga colleagues, and she said, that's fine.
Yeah, totally.
The job then is to just observe what's coming up, because actually meditation is also a very creative space.
And but that's what I like, is observing it, because never before, and it's the same when I run, I do the same thing now. I think about things, but it's almost like I'm on the outside looking in, and I'm aware of what I'm thinking, and there's an awareness around what I'm feeling, and that is a gift, because I never used to pay any attention to my feelings, my needs. You know, I didn't even know if I was tired. I just, you know, you just plowed on.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, our generation.
Yeah, whereas just that little bit of space in order for me to be aware of me, how I'm feeling, what's going on with me, makes a huge difference, because then I can adapt.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's right. It's kind of like having the routine of that as well, I think, allows you each day. I mean, I do mine in the morning mainly. You know, sometimes at the end of the day I'll do it as well, but I tend to do mine in the morning. It gives me a chance to, I suppose, tap into my emotional temperature for the day. You know, to just sit there and go, okay, right, how am I actually feeling today? What are my actual needs today? And okay, there are some things you can't change in the day because there are, you know, obligations for work or kids or whatever it happens to be. But what are my actual needs today? Do I need to slow the pace down a bit today?
There are things you can change.
And do I need to create a bit more space? Do I need to cancel something? Do I need to do something? You know, maybe at that doctor's appointment, it should be today that you book it, because we tend to do that. So I know we put those off as well. Oh yeah, I'll get around to it. I'm fine. Then you're not fine. You know, things like that. But I like that time to just, and it can be 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be
a little emotional check-in.
A little emotional check-in. Yeah, it's a time to do that.
And I think that is a big has played a big part in preventing me getting to those points that I described earlier, where I was just this crazy hormonal mess. Because the crazy hormonal mess, I think, was because I wasn't listening. The signs were there, but I was just plowing on and not listening. Whereas the daily check-in just kind of, okay, you are tired, you're a bit fragile here, Jill. Slow down. You know you're likely to react sort of emotionally to things. Just make sure you got space to do that.
And I think the other thing is that it's human, isn't it, to feel all of that? It's completely normal and completely human to do that. And I think sometimes we also have to remind ourselves as women that we're doing just fine.
Because it's good to feel. I think that's another thing. I used to think, I think we both are quite creative people. With that, quite often comes a high degree of sensitivity, emotion. But I used to almost, and maybe this is subliminal messages that have come over the years, I used to almost try and deny that. It was like that was a weakness if you showed too much. You know, come on, be strong, especially in the workplace. And it's like, it is good to feel.
So that's the whole, that'd be another topic, I think, but the whole thing about vulnerability.
But there's nothing wrong with this. Absolutely, this is a natural period in our life. There is nothing wrong with feeling weepy and emotional and needing a bit of listen to what that's trying to tell you, I think.
I think it's important.
Instead of trying to deny it and pretend it's not happening.
Yeah, because the thing is about the menopause, because this is all about the menopause, it's inevitable. Every single woman will go through it. You cannot avoid this party.
And some
It's not when you are, do you know what? I tell you what, I'm not going to go. I might say I'm going to go, but leave it at the last minute.
It's a bit like childbirth. Once you don't have a choice.
You don't have a choice. You do not have a choice. So, and I think for many years it was hidden from society, and women tried to hide everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And I think our generation is very much like that as well, in the sense that weakness it shouldn't be shown. You know,
we grew up even at the other side of it. So even when you started your period, I don't know about you, but with me it was like, you don't tell, you hide it. You know, it's almost like
certainly not the
you know. And then when sort of the tampon came out and it was you could go swimming with it. It wasn't at that point.
Rollerblading, whether you could do it before or not.
But at that point, it wasn't. Oh, let's celebrate that we can carry on. It doesn't have to stop us doing the things we love. That's what we were excited about. We were excited about. Oh, cool! Nobody will know I've got my period. You know, it was we were.
That is a really interesting thing.
Yeah, we were like,
and they also. They wrapped them up, didn't they?
Yeah,
colourful things.
Yeah, and it's the same.
They look like
sweets
and things. I remember my brother went. This is funny actually, because I remember we went into Boots in the UK, which is a chemist sort of place for people who aren't in the UK. We went in there, and they just brought those tampons out that were wrapped up in like really colourful
flowery paper, as if you didn't know what that was, shaped like a bullet.
Well, I think I even had a range where they were like sort of sweet wrappers to it. Do you remember? My brother didn't know what they were. He was quite young.
Oh no!
But he was kind of aware enough that women have these period things, right? But at the stage where he was super embarrassed to talk about anything, you know, like boys do when you go bum, willy, and they just like chuckle and lose it basically. My brother went up to these men. Oh man, they got these really, really cool sweet things. And Mum went, yeah, they're not sweets. And I took great pleasure in embarrassing my brother. There for this, and he was like, oh, and he kind of threw them down as if they were like you know, the devil incarnate or something. He was so embarrassed that he ran out of the shop.
But that was our generation. It was trying to pretend these things, which was something else.
Yes.
Whereas it's a lot different now. That has changed, but there still is a kind of almost secrecy or denial.
Oh my god, did you ever ask your dad to go and buy any?
Oh
my god, that would never happen, would it?
Whereas now that's different.
Oh gosh, yeah, completely. Like my girl's dad does, and David will do it, you know, things like that. It's just you know, it's just kind of normal now.
Yeah.
But my goodness, we didn't grow up in that. But you're right, there's a sort of secrecy about it,
which is changing. But I think our generation is still affected by that. And do
you think that spills over then still into the men?
Absolutely.
Because it's really tricky, isn't it? Because you get to that point, and in some ways you want to embrace that whole change and shift, but you're quite scared about finding what you might, you know, underneath it all, right? But then everyone else is expecting you to carry on as normal, and you just can't do that. But it's also super difficult to come back to the space, to find the space for you in the mix, to go, hold on a minute, what do I need and want here? You know, not what everyone else is expecting of me, but what do I need and want?
Totally.
And I think that's still, I think I struggle with that.
And it can be hard to do, especially the way society is today. There's a lovely book, Second Spring.
Oh,
yeah. You may have read it.
I haven't read it, but I've heard of it.
I'll quote it all wrong, but it's very much about embracing the transition and seeing it as a glorious thing, as a good thing, as an exciting thing. But she mentions how in generations gone by, you know, if you look at tribes, when a woman's entering this stage in their life, they would have already gone through all the kid years. You know, they would be at that point in the tribal dynamics where they're taking a step back. They have more space. You know,
but whereas nowadays,
their role becomes naturally more of an elder, the wise one. Whereas nowadays,
we have our kids
I mean,
later.
my boy's only 13, but I know lots of my friends who've got kids much younger than that. And yet they're
And they're your
juggling
age.
young kids going through the menopause, still got crazy careers. So there's this unnatural conflict of your body physically is asking you to slow down a little bit in some areas. And yet,
at least
we're
for a
not.
while.
Yeah.
Because that comes back to what I was saying, at least for a while, because my mum's menopause was really quite, in terms of physical symptoms, and I've inherited that, thank goodness, was very nondescript in the sense that weren't a lot of physical symptoms that came up. There are, obviously, skin shifts. I find myself itching a bit, even now, kind of thing. But not huge sort of issues. But and she, like I've said earlier, she found that whole era really impactful. But for a period of it, it isn't. And I think the problem is if you're trying to juggle, like you just said, the young kids, the career, the social life, the partner, the blah, 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 all those different things in the mix of all of that, there isn't any space.
No.
And so we do end up trying to do too many things when really we need to go, okay, no, stop. I've got to do something here and create.
What do I need here?
But what do I actually need? And tune into it, but you can't.
But as sad as it is, asking that, what do I need, and then actually being able to do something about it is a luxury for men.
Or being able to answer that. What do I need? Do we always know? No, not necessarily. I'm not sure that I knew necessarily for a good chunk of it, and I still don't know everything. I'm still searching.
Even when we don't know, it's still good to ask the question.
Oh God, yeah, and find the pockets of space.
We figure it just gives us a little bit of time and space to figure it out, even if the way we figure out is a little bit messy.
I think messy's okay though. I think we should close on this one because I love this phrase that you put on Instagram a while ago. And I know it's not your phrase, but it's about the ducks in the row. And it says, my ducks definitely aren't in a row.
That's a good one, that, isn't it?
They're all over the place or something like that. And I think 2 of them might even be pigeons.
Yeah.
I thought, that's kind of about it.
Yes.
Because one of my teachers, again, Judith Lassiter, who's teaches things like non-violent communication and all sorts of stuff. She goes on about having all your ducks in a row. Right. And she's like, but she says it kind of slightly tongue in cheek, and actually it's not a bad way of linking it into the menopause, because she says, if someone asks you to do something, have a think about it and go, are my ducks all in a row here? Does it make me jump for joy because I'm seeing the little baby ducks behind the mummy duck and stuff like that? Does it make me feel that? Because if it doesn't, don't do it or shift it, you know. And I think that's quite an important thing.
We have a choice.
We have a choice to say no to things. Do you want to go to that social event? No. Well, don't go then.
Yeah.
Just don't go.
You don't have to.
Don't have to do it. Don't put yourself through it, kind of thing.
And that is, when you're younger, I think there's more of that pull to be all things, or to be seen to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And menopause and this sort of transition, I think, also probably links in with the fact that you realise that time is precious. That we are entering a new chapter, but we don't have forever. So the time we have, let's make the most of it and use it to do what we want to do, rather than
And if it is a bit messy, it doesn't really matter. I remember phoning somebody, one of my friends up a few years ago now, and there was an automated message came back, which was hilarious, and it said, sorry, I can't take your call. Can you call me back in 2 years because I'm going through the menopause?
I love that. I might have to steal that. I might have to steal that. That is a good one. I love it. Oh, yes, mess is good. Maybe that's the conclusion to the whole thing. Menopause is messy, but mess is good. We don't have to pretend it's anything else. This is good.
That's so cool.
Just give yourself a bit of space.
Yeah.
To be able to deal.
Yeah. Or just call me back in 2 years.
Yeah, or don't call me
Oh,
back.
don't call me back this long.
I never actually liked you, and now that I'm in the menopause, I've got the courage to tell you that.
That's a pretty well. I think we're going to end with that. I think that's a really good way to end. Don't you? Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Messy menopause.
Messy
over and out.
menopause. Call us back in a couple of years, or just don't bother.